the nitty-gritty side of podcasting, the conversations that usually happen when the red light stops. It's time to have these conversations out loud. In this introductory season of Just Podcasting, I've curated a diverse group of podcasters, from those just starting out to the well-seasoned pros. We'll be exploring the true cost of podcasting well beyond just the numbers. Welcome to Just Podcasting. Real stories, real podcasters, for real life. Welcome back to Just Podcasting. I'm your host, Carrie Caulfield Eric, and if you are enjoying the show, yay! Don't forget to do the things to connect. Find all the information to connect in the show notes or go to YaYaPodcasting.com/JP to get all the info. And you can always email me at Carrie@YaYaPodcasting.com. I'm talking to Lisa Orkin. Lisa Orkin is a prolific podcaster. She is the host of Project Woo Woo, where she interviews all the famous people you could ever want to talk to that are played by her actor friends. It's a really fun show. But Lisa started podcasting way back when. She's kind of an original podcaster, but she didn't know it. Lisa's an award-winning comedy radio producer and filmmaker. In her role as creative director for the award-winning Radio Ranch, Lisa has over 15 years experience in copywriting, scripting, audio production, and voice acting in both traditional and digital media. Project Woo Woo is Lisa's fourth podcast. Lisa's other podcasts include Men Have Feelings Too, which turned into Honestly Lisa, and Love Bites with Robbie Rist. You may remember him from the Brady Bunch, Cousin Oliver. So yeah, Lisa is very unassuming and has no problem giving you the reality of what she does. I love that. She's so open and just so understated. Lisa is a client and we have a lot of fun working together. She's very creative and I think you'll hear that in this interview. You may hear how much we like doing things together. So there may be too much laughter, for which I don't apologize because laughing is awesome. But feel free to skip those parts where it's like a minute of laughing. No, it's not that much, but feel free to fast forward. It won't hurt my feelings. I promise. So if you want more information about Lisa, you can go to projectwoowoo.com. You can also visit the show notes in your podcast player. And if they support hyperlinks, yay, you can just click on all the things. If they don't, get yourself a new podcast app because I don't think that's a good thing. Please enjoy my conversation with the phenomenal Lisa Orkin. Welcome to the show, Lisa.
Thank you.
I'm so glad to have you here. And full disclosure, Lisa's one of my lovely clients, one of my favorite clients.
Aw, I love that. You're just saying that because I'm here.
No, I would always say that.
Okay. Oh, see, like I said, because I'm here. Oh, yes, of course. No, we have fun.
Yes, we do. So, Lisa, why don't you tell us a little bit about what your life looked like before your first podcast? And when I say first, I mean your very first foray into podcasting.
So my 10 years ago foray into podcasting?
Yes.
So I worked as a actress and a comedian, and I wrote and produced comedy radio commercials, only comedy, and was the voice in them. That's what I was doing for a living. So I worked in audio, but in the creative part. And I always had engineers and I never had to do any of the other stuff. All I did was go in the studio and do it and leave. Little did I know. That's what I did for a living for years. So doing audio, creating comedy, and selling products and marketing on the radio, but the actual terrestrial radio, the real radio. Not that this isn't the real radio. What does that mean? But
Well,
radio.
we're not like going through the airwaves.
Yes.
We're going through fiber optic cables.
Yes. Yes. So before digital. So that is what I did. So I basically wrote commercials and then was in them for years all over the country in Canada. Did thousands of them, actually, thousands. Still do them, but not as many. And I had a child at home back then. And I was like 4 boyfriends ago. So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you for adding that.
You're welcome. I believe that was the deal. Yes.
Yeah. Well, we do get real here. So,
yes.
Why did you start your first podcast?
My first podcast was over 10 years ago. It was called Countdown to Christmas. We did 6 episodes, and it was about these 2 women trying to get toys, like a special toy, and it was scripted comedy dialogue. Nobody knew what a podcast was. Nobody. And I actually used Libsyn back then as well. Somebody told me about Libsyn, and I kind of figured it out, and it may even exist somewhere online still, somehow.
Oh, that would be interesting.
Yeah, I may have it somewhere, but it was totally scripted, and it was like 5-minute scripts of these 2 women trying desperately to get the it toy for Christmas.
So how did that work out for you?
You know what? I just did it, and then sort of nobody supported it in my office. I was like, this is really good for us. This is what we do as audio. And so, but nobody bought it really. Nobody understood it.
Do you think that's because they didn't understand what a podcast was?
Yeah. Because, we had a studio, we had actors, we had writers. I tried to get everyone to start podcasts for years and years and years.
And nobody bought into it.
Nobody bought into it. Just, I knew there was something there and nobody was willing to jump on the train with me.
What about now?
Well, now everybody's kind of interested in it. What's funny is my dad had a radio series for years, and that is now a podcast. So he had a radio series back in the 60s and 70s that they made into a podcast. But the problem is the people who listened to it in the 60s and 70s don't necessarily listen to podcasts.
Oh, that's a very good point. Although that kind of older age range is a fast growing market, by the way.
Is it? It's so interesting because I feel like with my podcast, I have to show people over a certain age, like they just stream it from my website. Like I can't get them to use their
phone.
Yeah. Can't.
That's so funny because I can't get my husband to use apps.
Oh.
Yeah. So, and he's only in his 50s. So he's not that old.
So I think it's changed a lot, but like right now, comedians are really big in the podcast world. So I think comedians jumped on that train a little earlier.
Yes.
Then after that first foray, the next podcast I did was called Men Have Feelings Too.
Oh.
And I basically interviewed men, mostly comedians, and just wanted to know if they had feelings. I was actually coming off of a breakup, and I was so upset that I just wanted to know if they actually had feelings. So I did I think I did 30 of those.
Wow.
And then those morphed into Honestly Lisa, because eventually, by the 30th podcast, I was like, yeah, they have feelings, whatever. It literally was like, all right. So then I just decided I was so lost. It had nothing to do with men. It had everything to do with me. I started interviewing my family rabbi, manifestors, life coaches, my dad. I interviewed my brothers, my daughter, my ex-husband to try and figure out my life. So that was the next 25 episodes of Honestly Lisa. So Men Have Feelings Too morphed into Honestly Lisa. And while I was doing those, I was doing another one called Love Bites with Robbie Rist, who a lot of people would probably know if you Google Robbie Rist. He's a voiceover actor in Los Angeles. He was Oliver on the Brady Bunch, many years ago. And so we've been doing commercials together since we were in our teens. And so Robbie Riss plays every man that has ever existed in my life. And I just recreate moments from my love life. And these still go out every week. I just don't promote them. But every week a new one. I think they're still going out actually. And so Love Bites are just little 3-minute recreations of actual conversations from my love life played by Robbie and me.
That just seems like a prolific amount of content to be created. So when you thought about Men Had Feelings, how long did it take you from that conception to actually launching it?
So I think that I was angry. So that was good to get things moving quickly. I was really angry and I had a studio I could work out of for free. So because I had an advertising agency, and in our agency so it wasn't getting all of that in order wasn't that big a deal.
Right.
I would guess about a month.
Oh, that's pretty awesome.
Yes, for that one. But I knew nothing of what I was doing. I had I had done B school with Marie Forleo. So I was sort of using that as well. I don't even totally remember. Men Have Feelings 2 may have started off with just maybe no website.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, eventually I had a website. It was just going out on all of the different feeds. So it was on iTunes and all of that. No, I think it had a website actually. And then it morphed into Honestly Lisa. And Honestly Lisa, I started booking my guests. So I wasn't even really booking the Men Have Feelings 2. One of the guys I worked with was actually booking all the guests.
Oh, that was nice.
Yeah. So I was actually lazy. I had no idea. So then I started booking my own guests for Honestly Lisa. And then that became harder. And then I think doing all of the uploading it up, making sure I had my show notes up, somewhere in there, I figured out about show notes. Probably around my 10th episode of Men Have Feelings too.
So you didn't have any show notes for this?
No, I don't think so. I think we could look back and see, but maybe just on Libsyn, I would put the show notes. And so it's so funny because I don't quite fully remember, but I think that's I'm just going to say it's because I'm in my 50s. I don't remember. But I think that when I started having to upload it myself, and then do all of the show notes and then make sure that it was out on social media and start doing social media. I think as I went, I look at it like a long game podcasting that you learn as you go. And the only way to learn is to just go. Just do it.
Do the thing.
No one's going to listen to your first episodes anyhow. So you might as well just get started. It doesn't have to be perfect. And it's really fun to listen to people's podcasts when they first started anyways, because it's so different than where they are by the time they have that giant success.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And that's something that I've talked about before, and I've talked about with other guests on this show, is that the question comes up very often that should I go back and edit episodes 1 through 20? Because now I'm on episode 100 and those early episodes were terrible. And my answer is no.
Yeah, I think not as well. Because you know what? When you start listening, you end up going backwards. Yes. You'll listen to the newest episode and then you're like, oh, I really like that. Let me listen to the next one. You may just start going back through the the catalog. Yeah.
And the listener also gets to see how you've grown and changed over the years, which is fine. And also don't make that work for yourself.
Yeah. Well, and that's really the biggest key. So I think something I learned from you all the time, because I'll try to make more work for myself and you're like, don't do it.
Yeah.
You're always I'm like, do you think I should just re-edit all those episodes and then do a whole different version? You're like, no. Just keep moving forward.
Right.
Move forward. So I think once I started doing all of that myself, it started getting really difficult and really, really hard. And then instead of using the studio, I started recording at home because I couldn't use the studio as much because I had other stuff booked. And so when I started recording at home, it started getting really complicated. And I would do a lot of Zoom calls. And you know why I started doing it at home? at our office, at the studio there, we couldn't seem to get the Skype to work anymore.
Oh.
Like here we have this giant, like beautiful recording studio and we couldn't get the Skype to work.
So even professionals have problems with Skype.
Yeah, and that was a professional studio. And so, right, we could phone patch somebody in, but they'd have to be in a studio.
Right.
So there was just no way to do it. And so I started recording at home. And I started recording in my bedroom. And I would use video so that they could see me hanging out in my bed and like because that was honestly Lisa. And then I think I did like 25, 30 episodes of that. And then I just got exhausted. I was exhausted. And I had nowhere else to go with it. I wasn't interested anymore. I had no idea why I was talking to people. And I just thought I have to rethink this whole thing.
So I find that very interesting because you really started, honestly, Lisa, from a place of emotion. Like it was definitely, sounds like it was a thing for you and part of a self-discovery journey. And I kind of like that about your work.
Yeah.
You're a seeker.
Yeah.
Very obviously. I think that some people find that vulnerability really hard. Is that just who you are, or?
I think it's who I am. I think that's like just built into who I am. I think, doing stand up on stage, I did solo shows for years, and my solo shows always reflected something I was going through in my life. And then I would only do it for a certain amount of time, and then I'd sort of be done with it. I don't feel like this is relevant anymore for me. I don't want to do it. So podcasting really became my solo shows. So all of my onstage solo shows just sort of morphed into podcasting and talking about my real life always. A, got me in trouble with whoever I was dating. And B, yes. I think emotionally was just not, I don't know how smart it was. And I think I'm still vulnerable in my current show in Project Woo Woo. I just think it's in a different level.
Right.
I mean, Love Bites are definitely revealing. And those are based on actual moments in my love life. I don't do that anymore. I don't make those anymore because it's too personal.
So you're currently in a relationship?
I am. And I've been in a relationship for 4 years. And so I feel like with him, and although he doesn't really care that much, and honestly, he doesn't listen to my podcast, so I don't worry about it that much, but I'm a little careful about what I reveal. I curate it just a little.
Is that because of more past experiences? I know you said he doesn't care, but is that because he's a little bit more special, maybe?
Yeah, I just think people got mad at me.
Okay.
I think I hurt people's feelings. I don't really care about the ex-boyfriends at all. Like, we were done. So you know what? Whatever. Listen to it. Hear what you put me through.
Right.
But this one, I think I found a way in Project Woo Woo to combine my personal life with my acting. So it's sort of that, like, honestly, Lisa morphed into Project Woo Woo, which is the current podcast. And I think in Project Woo Woo, I get to play in a way that I didn't get to play on Honestly, Lisa. I get to take my silly and use that and just fall into a whole nother world.
Yeah, it is. That's definitely, I recommend anybody who's listening to listen to Project Woo Woo because it is incredibly unique and engaging and funny, but I still think it has that seeker.
Yeah.
I think you still have that vulnerability and that just that seekerness there.
Yeah, it's been an interesting road. Right. So just should we explain to them? It basically, I have all of my brilliant comedy actor friends in Los Angeles, professionals, all playing people that I've always wanted to talk to. Anyone from like Bob Dylan to Marianne Williamson to, I don't know, Barbara Streisand, but lots of seekers.
Yeah.
Carolyn Miss is coming up. So yeah, it's just, I have like imaginary, real conversations, and I make them be the people I want them to be.
I love that so much.
Yeah.
And I really think it's interesting that your why has really evolved, and not just with one podcast, but it has evolved through 4 or 5 podcasts?
4 podcasts, and I'm working on a new one.
Ooh, that's exciting.
Yeah, but the new one's going to be completely scripted.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Project Woo Woo is not going anywhere. I'll keep doing that, but I'm going to start a new one as well. I just feel like podcasting is what I want to do for life. But it's hard. I was hiking with somebody the other day and her husband, I said, yeah, I'm going to go talk to someone about this, go for a little sort of job interview thing. And he went, oh, wait, you work? And it just floored me. People don't think I work, but making a podcast is a lot of work.
It's probably 10 different jobs.
It's 10 different jobs. On top of it. Yeah. I mean, all week I've been working on my press kit, as you know, and it's been painful. To write your own press kit is not easy.
No, it's not. And to format your own press kit.
It's really difficult.
It really is.
It is.
What parts really overwhelm you the most?
I get overwhelmed by the booking of guests and timing all that out. And I do get a little bogged down by the technical, but I realize that's just an excuse because now I'm using a friend's little studio. We're trading. So that makes it pretty easy. So I don't really have to record from home all that much. So she handles all that. But I think all the logistics, it's like uploading it and then making sure that the show notes are on everything. And then I'm promoting it. And then I'm making sure I sent the guest a thank you and an email with all the links on it and the audiograms. And then it just feels to me like I'm never doing enough. It's like now that I've got the press kit done, I need to send it out to a bunch of different people. And I feel like I'm never promoting it enough.
Right. I think that's very, very common. So how do you kind of reconcile? Because that to me sounds very anxiety making. So how do you cope with that?
My newest way of coping with it is that I got a big whiteboard, dry erase board, huge. I mean, big, literally as big as my dining room. It's huge.
Is it 4x6?
Yeah. On wheels.
Oh, wow. Oh, yes.
Yeah. And so one whole side of it is a scrum board. And I take each thing and I break it down into tasks.
Just to back up, okay. Not everybody may know what a scrum board is. So can you kind of define that?
So Scrum board, they use them for software makers, but I guess Toyota uses them as well. And so you have a big giant board and most people use Post-its. And the first column is stories. Some people call it the backlog. And all the things that you need to get done, let's say my press kit, I need to work on do the Patreon page. I need to send out emails to all the directories. So I would put anything that I feel is a project in that backlog or stories column. Then when I'm going to start that, I'll move the press kit to the next column, which would be run. I just call it run.
Okay.
And then the next column is actions. And so I'll take down all the little things I need to do and I break them into actions. And then as soon as I'm done with all of those actions, I move that sticker to the done column.
Okay.
And that for me makes me feel like I'm getting something done.
Yeah, because it can be hard to feel like you're not accomplishing anything, especially because this is kind of podcast production's like a treadmill.
It is.
Yeah, you can feel like you're running really fast and you're not going anywhere.
Yeah, I do. You feel like you're running backwards half the time. And so, I'll say to you, oh my gosh, I forgot to get you half of what you needed. And what's funny is I work on other people's podcasts and I've edited their podcasts, but I don't edit mine. So people actually pay me to edit theirs and I pay you to edit mine.
Yeah. And I pay somebody else to edit this because it's so time consuming. Do you think that editing is probably the most time consuming part?
Well, I don't think so, but that's because I don't fully edit my whole podcast.
Right.
So I think if I had to sit down and edit it from top to bottom, yes. but I actually let it run. And so I just don't edit it. I just edit the front and I put the intro and outro on. And then if there's something inside there that needs to be taken out, somebody said something that needs to be removed, maybe I'll do that.
Right.
I would like to edit it more. I would like to sit and do that, but I don't.
Yeah. Well, I think especially for a comedy podcast, I think it works.
Yeah.
Like, I would not recommend that for everybody. Like, if I had a client come to me and say, I don't want to edit this at all, I'd be like, do you want to rethink that?
Yeah. And I also think the other thing is too that we're professionals, me and the guest. And so we really know how to like stand on stage for an hour and entertain. So because of that, I think I have in my head the whole story, like I have the beginning, middle, and end. I can feel it in my bones. But that's only because I've been on stage for 25 years that I can feel that.
Right. I'm kind of absorbing that because I'm thinking, what would it take for a podcaster to feel that?
Yeah, it's a really good question because I had to learn it on the stage with real people to feel that. I think that's why people need to edit their podcast, because I think more important than anything else is the story.
Yeah.
I think that's what people miss out on.
Yeah.
There needs to be a story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree 100%. So let's talk about the cost of podcasting. And you have the advantage of having a professional studio. But were there other costs involved when you started and say now?
The other ones felt like they didn't really cost anything except paying like a VA to help me get everything uploaded and all of that done. But this one, Project Woo Woo, like getting a new website, getting graphics costs money. I pay studio time and I bought all the equipment. So I could do this at home and I don't. But all of that costs money. So, I got a Zoom H6. I'm actually using a Focusrite right now. I have microphones, which costs money. It costs money to edit it. It costs money for audiograms. It costs money to promote it. So it's definitely, and time. So I would say I spend a good at least 10 to 15 hours a week actually working on it, and then probably the rest of my life thinking about
it. Do you dream about podcasting, Lisa?
A little bit. And I'm very excited to start a new one, but I know what it's going to take.
Do you feel like you're a little bit crazy for wanting to start a new one, especially a scripted one?
Yeah. So what I'm basically doing is I'm taking a movie script that I wrote years ago that like won a few awards, and I'm turning that into a podcast.
Oh, wow.
So it's already has the structure. It just needs to be turned to audio instead of visual, because right now it's for a screenplay. So, it'd be shot and there would be pictures. So I'm turning that to audio.
That sounds like a real challenge.
So on the other side of my scrum board are the scene breakdowns.
Okay.
So that's what's going on the other side of it. So right now I can see from where I'm sitting, like we started. So me and a partner are working on that. And we have all the voiceover actors. So that's easy for us here.
So do you have to pay for the voiceover actors?
No, because everybody is so happy to do something fun where they're not selling something or having to say 2 lines that they are like chomping at the bit. So I would say actors in anybody's town, if they get to do something fun, they'll do it for free.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah.
That is good to know.
Yeah. They may also hope that I cast them in a radio commercial at some point. But I think they're just grateful to work. So like, I did indie film that did really well a couple of years ago, and everybody did it for free, and lots of name actors, just because everybody wants to work.
That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing.
Yeah. We don't get to work that much. So
I want to go back to your relationship. You said that your partner doesn't listen.
No. Oh, I'm going to catch up on these, but I think a lot of my friends and family just don't get it.
And how does that make you feel?
Sometimes it makes me feel bad. It's funny because my stepmother, she listens religiously every week. And my one brother listens, but my other brother has no clue and he doesn't understand it at all. And I work fully in podcasting now. I mean, I write advertising for podcasters, I edit podcasters, and I do my own podcasts. It makes me feel sort of bad sometimes. I mean, my favorite question is my friends will say to me with Project Woo Woo, so how are you going to make money with it?
Oh, and how do you respond to that?
And I just say, yeah, there's a bunch of different ways to make money. And then I catch myself and I go, yeah, it's a long game. I'm not going to worry about it.
That's a good answer. How do they respond? Like, how do they react to that answer?
I think they're like, you're spending time and money putting it into this project. Why? But I just feel this overwhelming need to do it. I just feel like it's a great place to tell stories. And stories are what really we wouldn't be here today as a civilization without stories. Because somebody said, hey, down the to the next cave, there's a bunch of like grapes. And so, and if no one ever told everybody where the grapes were, no one told that story, no one would get it.
That's very true. Yeah. And that's the reason they started making cave paintings.
Yeah. Cave paintings were podcasts. That was like the precursor to the podcast.
Right. And there's the title of the episode.
Yeah. So, right. And so I think with Project Woo Woo too, it's that you can learn something and be entertained at the same time.
Oh, I wholeheartedly agree because sometimes the guests, firstly, I forget that they're not the actual people that they're portraying.
Yeah.
And secondly, I'm like, that's so profound.
Yeah. And
I'm just like, oh, I need to like stop and listen to that over again. Definitely, I think you should do like a greatest hits, like greatest quotes from that. But I don't want to put more work on you.
Yeah, I'd like to do that at some points. I've always felt the need to tell stories out loud because I think being vulnerable and telling stories makes everyone feel better about themselves. Either A, they don't want to be you and they're glad they're not, or B, they're like, oh, that same thing happened to me.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. At the end of the day, we are all telling a story in some capacity, and some of us just podcast it.
Yeah. So I do think there's a lot of work. I think it's a giant commitment. Every once in a while, somebody will say to me, I want to do a podcast. And I go, okay. And they think it's just recording it and throwing it on the air, but it's not.
You can do it that way.
You can do it and not worry if anyone ever hears it.
Right. And that would be okay if that's what your intention is.
Yeah. And, like even like this one guy who listens to my podcast, he 3 limbs amputated, and he sent me a note and said, yeah, I'm recovering, trying to get my life back together, and I dig your podcast.
Oh.
If 3 people hear it and like it, you're doing something good in the world.
Yes. Everybody listen to that. That nugget of women.
It's a nugget of women giving wisdom, man.
That's right.
I mean, that's really what it's about, right? And, we all have hobbies. So is it a hobby or is it, who knows? It's a pretty darn expensive hobby at this point. I don't even add up the numbers because if I did, I'd probably be like, what are you doing?
Well, don't stop doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
And I don't plan to.
Have you ever had a moment where podcasting has made you cry?
Oh, yeah. When I first started doing Project Woo Woo, I didn't know what it was. I couldn't figure it out. People thought it was crazy. I put it out into the world and I was so emotionally scared that I was just completely doing something nutty. Well, it may be nutty, but like I've definitely felt like this isn't working or I don't know what I'm doing. I was really insecure with Project Woo Woo. I'm in LA, so we're hearing sirens because I live in a city. I was really, really unsure and unsteady with Project Woo Woo. I just feel like the Project Woo Woo of all my podcasts has been the hardest one because it's really difficult to explain to people. And so because of that, it's been now I'm on like episode 22 or something. Like I think I just did my 22nd episode and I'm feeling more confident, but I really had a crisis of confidence at first.
Do you think that maybe because what you're doing is very unique within the podcasting space?
I think so. And at first I thought I was just making fun of all of the self-help interview podcasts. And then I realized that it was more than that.
Right. So how did it turn into this other thing for you? Like, how did that evolve? Or do you not know?
I thought that I was going to do a parody podcast on self-help podcasts. That's what I thought it was going to be. That was the plan. And I work for those. I work for a couple of those. And I thought, I'm going to parody that. And so I went to a friend and I said, well, just make up characters. A friend of mine who's like a really good sort of story person. And I thought, I'm just going to go to her and just bounce ideas off of her. And she was like, just interview people. And I'm like, no, I interviewed people. It's not what I want to do. And I kept trying to figure out how to make it work. And then I asked a friend to be Tim Ferriss or a takeoff on Tim Ferriss. And then I thought, why not just make it Tim Ferriss? Why not just say it's Tim Ferriss? They're public people. I'm allowed to parody public people. And that's sort of where it started. And then I just thought, I'm just going to make it actual people that are dead or alive, people I really want to talk to. Brene Brown, Tim Ferriss, Marianne Williamson, Barbara Streisand, whoever, Timothy Leary, it doesn't matter. Lincoln.
Yeah.
The funny thing about Lincoln is he's an ex-boyfriend who played Lincoln, who sat down in the chair for me to interview him and looked at me and said, just wanted to let you know I just got married. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Is that going to be a problem with the interview now that I'm married?
Yeah. And I'm like, all right, well, thanks for being honest. Let's just get on with it.
Have you heard or shared with any of these famous people that are alive that you did this episode, this faux interview with them?
You know what? I haven't really, although I do know that when I did the Dylan episode, that the guy who played Dylan, Ron Zimmerman, was engaged to Cher for years, and that Cher listened to it and like share it with Bob Dylan. I don't know if that
my gosh,
I don't know if
yeah. Well, you had me at Cher listened.
Yeah, so Cher listened. I know. I want Cher to come on, but I don't want Cher to be Cher. So, like, if I could get Cher on, who should Cher be? Who should she play?
Yeah.
Although I do think it'd be fun to actually get like somebody like Cher on to be Cher.
But like a parody of herself.
Yeah, something like that. So yeah, or it's like everybody's like, wow, that sounds just like Cher. Well, because that was Cher. Because there's no rules on Project Woo Woo.
Only rule is that there are no rules.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever had to explain to a listener that, oh, that's not the real person?
Yeah. Somebody just recently said, that doesn't sound like, I don't remember who it was. And I said, yeah, because it's not. Oh, yeah. Actually, somebody said, wow, you had Marianne Williamson on. I went, well, kinda. Kinda was my friend Wendy Hammer playing Marianne Williamson. But yeah, for all intents and purposes, once we're in studio, some weird woo-woo magic happens and we all begin to believe we are actually talking, that they're the person. Like, we just completely forget that we're actually, like, I'll just forget I'm not talking to Marianne Williamson. Like, I am talking to her.
I guess that is good acting.
Yeah. Right? I just want to believe so much that Marianne Williamson would sit down with me in a studio that I just go with it.
That works. That works. You know, it works out.
Yeah. So I haven't heard anything yet. You know, I've been stalking Tim Ferriss a little bit with just sort of like on his Instagram and Facebook, stuff like that. I think because supposedly he has a good sense of humor about himself. Let's hope that's true. So maybe I'll...
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. But there's not really anything they can do because it's parody laws. Like, they literally can't.
You just had to throw that in there. Right?
Yeah, just saying it. So no one's asked me to take it off the air yet.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
How long do you spend a week podcasting, essentially? I think you said 10 to 15 hours, but like, in your podcasting life, how much of your week is devoted to podcasting, whether it be making your show or helping others professionally?
I would say probably 30 hours a week, 30 to 40. I would say almost a full-time job, whether I'm writing commercials for Jonathan or whoever, or I'm not writing for the other one now, but whoever I'm writing for and then working on the new one, I'd say 30 to 40 hours a week, maybe.
Yeah, so that's like a real job.
It's like a real job. Like yesterday, I podcasted and then I uploaded and I did other stuff and I worked on the press kit all day. And then I did actually interviewed Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer yesterday.
I'm so excited about that.
Yeah, very different story, I got to say, than what we had heard. That's all I got to say. I was a little surprised.
Okay.
Sometimes interviewing's hard, right? Because you're like, wait a second, okay.
And it doesn't always go where you think it's going to go.
No, it did not. I'll just say that. So like yesterday, yeah, but like today I'm podcasting with you. I worked on podcasting stuff this morning. I went on an audition and then I came back. And so, yeah, I would say probably more time than I think. And this weekend I'll be writing podcast stuff all weekend for one of my clients and then uploading Tuesday's episode.
Do you sleep?
Yeah. I do sleep and I do yoga. And here's the deal. I don't do anything podcasting until 10 in the morning.
Oh, that's an interesting strategy.
Yeah. So like I get up, I have coffee, I'll go do yoga. You know, I teach senior yoga too. And so I don't really start anything until like 10, but sometimes it might just be like a brainstorm conversation with an actor or sending out a bunch of emails to try and book actors or arranging studio time.
So what thing do you hate the most? Would you say the booking, or is there anything else where you just think of the task and you go, oh, I don't want to do that?
I think it's recording intros.
Okay.
Because I seem to put that off until the very last second. I would say that and show notes.
Oh, I hate show notes.
But I've rigged a system for show notes. Very different. I don't really know if I believe thoroughly in show notes anymore. I have like a type form that I send out to the actors and then they fill it out the type form and then I just plug those in as the show notes. I don't really do like, and 10 minutes in it was this, then we talked about this, and then I don't do that anymore.
Is that because it was so time consuming?
Because I noticed that like Jonathan Fields from the Good Life Project wasn't doing it. And some of the other big podcasters weren't doing it. And I said to him actually, and he said, yeah, it's debatable whether a long list of show notes work. We used to do that for SEO.
Right. And I've noticed a lot of big podcasters don't have them too.
And because, you know, if you have it on YouTube and you have all of the words up there, that's SEO.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Very good. Hint, hint.
Yeah. So, you know, YouTube is second to Google in search engines. So they find it on YouTube. That's okay too.
Totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay. So to kind of wrap things up here, what is the most negative impact in your life from podcasting?
I think my wallet. I think it's the amount of money I spend. And the other thing is explaining it to people. I think that I'd really hate to do. Here, give me your phone. Okay, see this little purple app that says podcast? That's what it is. Yeah, you can listen to things on there for free. Anything you want. And I think feeling a little bit like I'm working alone all the time.
That's very true. Podcasting can be very isolating. And that's hopefully one of the things that will help people when they hear this podcast.
Yeah.
We all feel that way sometimes.
I think that's one of the negatives is that, you know, the recording and talking to people is such a tiny part of the actual podcast.
Yeah, that's the easy part.
Yeah.
Actually, I think.
Yeah.
Once you plug in the microphone.
Yeah.
What is the most positive impact podcasting has had in your life?
I think the joy of making them and turning people on to them is the most I think that's super positive. Getting a note from somebody saying, I love listening to your podcast makes me feel good. So that's positive for me. And that I'm maybe spreading some joy and fun in the world and teaching people about things without them even knowing it, I think is kind of feels good and positive.
What do you see new podcasters struggle with?
I think they struggle with sound and interviewing.
Nobody has said interviewing yet. So I like that because I think it's right.
Yeah. I think they don't spend enough time working on the interview and the story and realizing there's a story even in an interview.
Yes, it has a beginning and a middle and an end, essentially. And also being open to that preconceived, because we have a preconception when we go into an interview of what we want to ask, what we want to know, how it's going to go. And very often, that's not what happens. So you have to be able to kind of shift in the moment, or you'll miss the interesting thing. And as a podcast editor, I hear that happen quite regularly, especially with new podcasters.
Yeah. And the other thing I think that along with interviewing is do your research before your guest comes on.
Yeah.
Like know who you're talking to.
Yeah. And I think the guest, when you do that, they appreciate it because it isn't as common as you think it would be. The pre-research, the pre-show research is not as common as you think it would be. It kind of automatically puts a guest at ease, I think.
I think it does too. And I think the other thing too that, which is why I'm going to do a scripted one next or why I'm doing Project Woo Woo is because audio, you don't have to see it. So you could create anything in audio. Someone can jump out of an airplane on audio. And in Love Bites, we really take advantage of that. But you, with sound, you can create anything in audio. You could be in a sweat lodge and then 2 seconds later be on the ocean.
So are you saying that podcasters aren't necessarily getting as creative as they could be?
Yeah, I think people need to think out of the box more.
You know, one of the things I encounter is with a new podcaster, with somebody who wants to launch a podcast, is I want to have a podcast and I want to sound like Gary Vee or Tim Ferriss and I'm like, oh, you too?
Yeah, just be you. Yeah. I also think too, you have to have a really strong why. I think you really need to know why you're doing it. Somebody said to me, I just want to get and talk. Well, that's not enough.
No.
Yeah.
No. I mean, you can actually do that if you are just maybe exploring or that's not a serious endeavor though. That's not a serious, absolutely play with podcasting, have a good time.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I've been playing with podcasting a long time and I do think it's a long game. And I do think if Project Woo Woo became some huge hit, people would be like, that just happened. No, it didn't.
No, it never just happened.
Yeah.
There's blood, sweat, and tears that goes into success.
Yeah. It's my 4th podcast and I've been doing it a long time. So yeah, I think it's a long game. I think that's also for the new podcaster. Just remember, it's a long game. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah. Good advice. Actually, great advice.
Yeah.
What are you struggling with at this very moment?
I am struggling with trying to get it out to more people. And I'm also struggling with how to describe it.
How are you working on that?
I just keep writing down ideas. So if you go to my website, it's I just had somebody go there that had no idea what I did. And I keep asking people to do that who have no idea what I did and say, go to my website and tell me what you think this is. And then from there, I can get information to make it clearer.
I think that is brilliant.
So that's what I do. I just say, okay, go there. So that's what I've been doing. Okay, so check this out. What would you think this means? What are you taking from this?
And what has the response been so far?
Well, they're fascinated. They can't quite figure it out. So they'll think, oh, it's you interview dead people. And then they sort of figure out, no. It's so, yeah. I think I'm getting clearer as I go on, and I think we're getting better at figuring it out as I go. But I think that just getting everything, all the little details.
Yeah.
What is that saying? Death by hundreds of paper clips. Sometimes it just feels like
I think it's death by 1,000 paper cuts.
Yeah, paper cuts. That's what it is. Paper clips. No, right. No, paper cuts. Death by 1,000 paper cuts. That's what podcasting is. See, look what it did to me. It made me think paper cuts were paper clips.
All right. Maybe that's the episode title.
Yeah. Don't
or maybe make that a drop.
Yeah. But I think organizing it all, keeping it all in order, like making sure that all the podcasts are in the same Dropbox file and the intros where it should be, keeping it all organized. You should be everything. So I think that's, executive secretary.
You don't get paid for it.
I don't get paid for it.
Right. You get paid in like virtual hugs.
Yeah, virtual hugs. And people have been buying me coffee lately because I have a little coffee thing on my website.
That's so nice.
Yeah, so people have been buying me a couple cups of coffee a week in support.
Oh, well, congratulations.
Thanks.
It's wonderful because it's hard to get people to take action.
It is. And so, so that's my new thing now. I just say to them, just go buy me a cup of coffee on my website.
That quite honestly, as a monetization strategy, that's something people can understand. It's very clear.
Right. Right. So when my friends say, how are you going to make money doing this? And I'm just going to go, well, I'm just going to have people buy me thousands of cups of coffee every month. That's it. Yep. That's it.
Okay. So, okay, if there's anything you could do differently, if you could go back in time, what would that be?
I would have saved money on launching and not worried about the launch so much. I just don't think it matters. Don't think you have to make a big giant launch. I think you just need to start it because I just don't think launching is that big a deal. I think you just need to do it. Sure, let people know it's out there. Sure, try to get some, but you're not going to be getting giant numbers right away. It's unless you're talking about sex, which I think is the only thing that gets giant numbers right away. So I think I would have sort of not worried so much about the launch, and I would have just went, yep, it's up, and then promote it.
Yeah, that's solid advice. I like to say that nobody's going to worry about or think about what you did last week.
Right.
Next week.
Right.
Because that's kind of how podcasting works, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's always the next week or the next episode.
Yeah.
I can't remember a podcast launch necessarily, except for like maybe for a client where I got paid to do it. Yeah, that's different.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? I don't think I can remember. Oh, yeah. Remember when Tim Ferriss launched his podcast? No.
Nope, not at all.
No one remembered. Like, none of that is important.
No, but they remember like the most current episode. Or do you remember guess what Tim Ferriss talked about this week?
Yeah, or just some episode they loved. Like, that was my favorite episode so far. I think that's it. I just think don't worry about it all being successful right away. And you know what? Project Woo Woo was getting like 10 downloads the first couple weeks.
Did you do a big launch? Well, yes, you did, didn't you? Because I remember your launch, but you're my friend and my client.
Right. I did like a Facebook party launch, but did that get me any more listeners? No.
No, did you do that hoping to get more listeners, or did you do it because it was kind of like a milestone celebration for you?
I don't know why I did it. Honestly, I think that's a lot of stuff. You know what? Another thing that I would do differently, I actually advertised on a few podcasts, and I don't think I did enough research to figure out who would have been the best podcast to advertise my podcast on.
No, I would think probably like comedy podcasts would be.
Yeah, I did like the other thing too is that I've learned a lesson too. Like one person who did a great job with the copy that I sent them, but like one person's like, yeah, and our show is sponsored by Project Woo Woo, and guess this looks good. It's a podcast about. I just thought, why did I pay you? That was not helpful.
No, that's not how you do a read.
Yeah, it was really like, I may look at this. Yeah, all right. So yeah, projectwoowoo.com with Lisa Orkin. Go ahead. Yeah, like it literally was like, okay. And I complained. But yeah, my new theory is that I just want to be on every podcast I can possibly be on to promote my podcast.
Okay, now I'm feeling less special, but
But you're my first.
oh, okay. Now I feel special.
Since I decided this. So yeah, you're my first podcast.
Oh, although I might not be the first to air.
Okay.
So, well,
right.
no, I guess January 30th. So who knows? Anyway, I'll still claim it.
I did Carly Nemo's podcast, but that was like last year.
Oh, it doesn't count.
Doesn't count.
One last question.
Okay.
Although it may be a big one. What do you think needs to change or be addressed in the podcasting industry or culture, if anything?
I think we need to figure out a way to get people to listen easier. I think getting new people to listen should be what it's all about. You know, like we need to join up in groups, like bands of podcasters roaming the streets, grabbing people's phones and showing them how to listen to podcasts.
I'm glad you added it there because the grabbing people's phones part.
Yeah.
Because it almost sounded like you wanted us to form a mob.
Or maybe we just go on those electric scooters and we just go up to people and go, hey, do you know how to listen to a podcast? And then we show them.
Yeah, it could be that simple.
Yeah.
I think, though, community advocacy.
Oh, is that what it's called? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So get into your community and talk to people about podcasting, especially if you're like a serious podcaster or a podcasting professional. Do the work at home.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah.
That actually is on my agenda for 2019.
Yeah. Volunteer at your local library to teach a podcasting class.
Yes, absolutely. And people will be glad to have you.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll be glad to get the information. Reach out to local businesses and educate them because, you know, you never know. They may be like, you're silly, but, you know.
Yeah, I think I think we need to just let people know we're out there.
We exist.
Yeah, and I think we have to support each other in a much bigger way.
Yes, and I think that if you're going to pay for advertising on Facebook or on social media, I think you need to target people, A, who don't normally listen to podcasts. So get outside your bubble, even if it's in your niche. And B, just make sure to put in there that listening is free.
It's free.
Yeah. And where to listen on Android and Apple. You know, the first thing my sister asked was, how much does that cost? Like nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it's free. You have to pay for audiobooks. You don't have to pay for podcasts.
Right. So I think that is a good place to wrap it up, unless you have any other words of wisdom or thoughts that you want to leave us with.
Know that audio is magic. It's kind of magic. And so just remember that when it gets too overwhelming, that you're making magic.
Oh, that is so beautiful. Well, thank you very much, Lisa, for coming and talking with me and sharing your valuable podcasting time.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
If you want more information, you can either check out the show notes in your handy dandy podcast app or head over to yayapodcasting.com/JP, where you can find all the episodes and links to everything mentioned. That's YAYA podcasting. Hope you know how to spell that. .com/JP. You'd like to follow me on Instagram? It's at Carrie Eric, CarrieArick. If you have suggestions for next season, are interested in being a guest, Carrie at yayapodcasting.com, CarRie at YAYApodcasting.com. It's time for you to go get messy and make mistakes. Bye.